Hi everyone, this show on the road. Just waiting for the buttons to be ready to press. Live on LinkedIn. Hello LinkedIn. Just about live. YouTube. We go. We are live on YouTube. And Twitter will do its thing on its own. So, hi everyone. Welcome to another Search Pilot live stream. My name is Will Critchlow. I'm the founder and CEO here at Search Pilot. And I do these roughly weekly. Quite often on Tuesday, occasionally on Friday, and if you want to know when they're coming up, the best thing is to get on our email list. If you head to searchpilot.com, there's a few options for getting on the email list, and we'll let you know when we're going live. If you want any of the resources that I talk about here today, if you head to searchpilot.com/live, you'll be able to grab some stories about some of our work, examples of tests that we've run, SEO tests and their results, as well as more information about how SEO testing actually works. And there's a form there. So if you are interested in learning more and speaking about how Search Pilot could help power SEO testing at your organization, there's a form there you can fill out and get in touch with someone on the team and have a detailed conversation about your specific. These go out this kind of time. So 4:15 p.m. in the UK, which hopefully, if I've got things right, is about 11:15 a.m. on the East Coast in the US, about 8:15 a.m. on the West Coast. I myself am in the UK, and so this is hopefully works for as many people as possible. And it goes out on my Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm at Will Critchlow on both places, and it goes out on the Search Pilot YouTube channel, which is pretty easy to find. It's the just search Pilot, and you should get there. So what we're going to be talking about this week is two main topics. The first and bigger one is about money, and in particular, how businesses think about money, and some misconceptions that I've seen around the place from and for SEOs, or people working in the organic search channel. And this has been coming out of some various conversations that I've been having recently, and I've mentioned a couple of times that I've been having more of these conversations with senior leaders, and it's often useful to reflect different aspects of these conversations back to you all. I hope that some of them could be useful in pushing your career ahead, and getting greater results. This week I was at the e-tail conference in London, which is e-commerce focused and generally some quite large organizations. We're speaking to many multi-billion-dollar organizations, some multi-billion-dollar online operations. Obviously, many of them are offline retailers as well. And the kind of level of folks that were there were a lot of people with titles like head of e-commerce, trading lead, digital marketing managers, and so forth. So often folks to whom the SEO team or SEO people in the organization, the people to whom they report. And so I asked a lot of people about their SEO teams in the conversations that were going on this week to understand what their strengths, opportunities, weaknesses were, what their goals and targets looked like, what their performance against their goals was looking like. And some of the things that I heard I found quite concerning, and I thought there was definitely some opportunity for some teams to improve. And I thought by sharing some of this stuff that maybe they're not saying direct to their teams via me, I can be the conduit, and this can maybe help some folks get ahead in their career and as I say, get some bigger, better results, because ultimately you need the resources behind you to be able to deliver the results the organization is looking for. And far too many of these people, so these heads of e-commerce, that kind of thing, far too many of them said that their teams weren't commercial enough, didn't necessarily always think in business terms, or weren't communicating with them, with their bosses, in ways that spoke their language. I had one particularly interesting conversation where I was speaking to both the channel specialist and who was there with the channel lead, so with their boss. And we were talking, the three of us, about the benefits of Search Pilot. So my pitch at detail was all about turning SEO into the channel that we always wished it could be. And that seemed to resonate. So this is about making it more accountable, making it higher performance, more like a media channel where you can measure the results of your spend. So anyway, I'm talking to these two, and the channel specialist starts to express some concern about what Search Pilot might cost. We weren't even talking numbers, but they said, unprompted, our SEO budget is pretty small. Now, bear in mind that this is a retailer with billions in total revenue. doing, I don't know the exact numbers, but at least hundreds of millions, if not billions, in e-commerce revenue. Half of that coming from organic search, complete guess, but a lot of money is kicking around in this system. And the response of the channel lead, so the boss, was fascinating. He said, hang on, let's not worry about that now. If this can generate incremental revenue, the costs will just go in cost of sale. We spend a fortune on Google advertising. I can put budget to this if it's going to work. Obviously, this is music to my ears, but I thought it was particularly interesting to watch the dynamic at play. And the channel lead was explicitly comparing the commerciality of the different channels. And I think he even said at one point, a pound is a pound. US folks, a dollar is a dollar. If you can spend money in one channel and make more money than you can in another channel, then you can deploy that budget in that other channel. And I think too often we don't get to that level of seniority. SEO is kind of kept in its box. It's seen as this kind of techie, geeky, dark art too often. And because we're not in the room where these conversations are happening, it does a disservice to the team, to the performance, and ultimately to the company, because to get the results that these companies want, they do need to invest. It is this difference between this thinking in kind of budget terms. I've been told I've got X to spend, or maybe you've never even been told, and you just look around and you think, well, I had to make a case to sign up for this tool that cost a few $100s a month, or whatever it might be. You have this lived experience of what it looks like to get money out of the organization. But as I said on, I think, a stream a couple of weeks ago, money is businesses' love language. when there's something they want, what a business does is it spends money on things. And the numbers can be quite stunning. So we'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. But I thought first, obviously, I can't do a full training session on everything finance related in the time that we have here. And I'm probably not the best person to do that anyway. But I thought what I hope I can achieve is talk about a couple of the terms that I've heard being either misused or not thought about in the right way, and do a combination of inspiring some folks to dive deeper into this. There's plenty of training material online, plenty of resources where you can learn more about it, and hopefully just pique some interest, spark some interest in understanding the business model of the company that you work for, and learn how to speak your business's love language. So the starting point, I think, really is to learn just some of the definitions. And this is at the very basic end of things, but just making sure that you have a good sense of what your company calls the different key financial metrics. There's some British English, American English overlap between different meanings of things like income, but some revenue, profit, margin, these things are well-defined terms that you can obviously just get to know and will work across any business. The things that I thought were particularly interesting, calling out cost of sales, that came up, as I mentioned, this is a business will define this either as the cost of generating the sale or the cost of delivering the goods, but the cost of acquisition is the key thing. And working in a quote-unquote free channel, too often not speaking the language of cost of acquisition. And I think that's a mistake, because this is how businesses think. And I think the thing about organic search is most of the clicks are free per click, right? As in you're not being billed for the clicks, but it's not free to get more of them. And if your business is even investing in SEO in any way, shape, or form, which if you're working there, they are, because they're paying your salary and they've got headcount assigned to the problem, then there is a cost associated with doing better. And I think this kind of concept of the marginal cost and the incrementality of the revenue is a key thing that I just wanted to spend a few moments on. So let me just share my screen. in many businesses, the channel that is responsible for the biggest chunk of e-commerce revenue is going to be organic search. But that doesn't mean that all of that revenue is yours to play with. You need to be thinking, firstly, you need an understanding of margin. So how much, gross margin in particular, is the interesting number. So when you add 10% to that revenue, how much of that 10% of extra money drops through into the business? And that is, for a retailer, that's going to be the cost of goods, for example, is going to come out of the revenue first. But the key thing is, it's not just even the profit attributed to the organic search channel, or the gross profit, the gross margin, is one of the great things about organic search is if you did nothing, it wouldn't drop to zero straight away. Right? So I've mapped out this is just completely made up numbers, but imagine the purple line is what would happen if you did nothing. You'd have some little ups and downs, but generally the trend would be gradual decline as your competitors outstripped you. The incremental revenue is the difference between that and what happens when you invest. So, let's change our mind. Let's do something, right? So let's invest in this channel. And with investment, we get this pink line. And the gap here is the incremental performance. So this could be measured in clicks, but it could be measured in revenue, could be measured in margin. And ultimately, the incremental gross margin is what the business has to play with, as that's what it can afford to spend on driving the pink line instead of the purple line. And these numbers are probably quite big. If you're working in a business of any size at all, even if this business if it's worth it for it to pay your salary, these numbers are pretty big. And you think of yourself, many businesses will think of headcount as overhead, as fixed cost, because it's not like there's an automatic relationship between the channel performance and the cost of the channel. So it's like, we have this fixed cost in people, but many channels have direct variable cost. Adverts are the classic example. If you're running search ads, then all those clicks cost money. Each individual click costs money. And that gets set against the incremental revenue that is driven by those things. And so trying to think in these terms and make business cases in these terms seems not to be a very natural skill for a lot of kind of more technically minded SEOs or folks who've come up through the channel and have always been conditioned to think of organic search as the free channel. And trying to show things in a way that the business understands them is a big part of this. And so part of the problem is that this is a lovely conceptual model, but of course we never see the purple line, and it's impossible to know for certain what the purple line would have looked like. In other words, what would have happened if we hadn't put this investment into the channel. And this is where these conversations were coming up when I was talking to these teams, is asking them, do your teams have the ability to report on the incremental performance? In other words, the things they've done and the results that have been achieved because of those things. And in very rare cases, they are able to do that. But in most cases, this is a missing ability within an SEO team. And this is the problem that we're really trying to solve at Search Pilot. So I've been talking a different language this week when I'm talking to the leaders. I'm kind of saying, what your practitioners, your SEO practitioners, individual contributors are going to get out of Search Pilot is they're going to get knowledge and insight. They're going to run tests and they're going to learn things. They're going to discover what works and what doesn't. And it's very intellectual benefit. But what the business gets and what you get as the leader is you get the dashboards and you get the ability to see the list of initiatives. These are the things that we've done this month, this quarter, this year. And these are the results that we can attribute to that. And if you don't have that, then yes, it is incredibly hard to invest properly in SEO because you don't have the purple line. You don't know what would have happened if you hadn't invested. And sometimes the line goes up even if you don't invest. What you want to do, of course, is spend money in that situation to make it go up even further, even faster. And so it's a bit self-referential, but what we're actually doing at Searchpilot is we're unlocking the ability to unlock spend. Because once this kind of tracking is in place, we can then be talking about the value of those individual initiatives and understanding that value to the business. And by making it legible to the business is able to spend more on this. So maybe it takes a pilot, maybe it takes a exploratory example of working together, but the numbers are substantial. And that leads me to the other angle of what I want to kind of talk about, which is I'm routinely shocked by what in-house SEO teams think is a large amount of money to spend for a business. And I mean, I say shocked. I'm not that surprised, even though I find it quite shocking. And part of the reason is that over the years, going all the way back to the distilled era, we've hired a lot of relatively junior folks, and we've trained them and developed them and helped them grow in their careers. And there often comes a point in that career where people start having to pitch or at least price things, or at least talk in money terms to their clients or their customers. And I've noticed over the years that this is a really hard Rubicon for folks to cross, especially early career folks to cross. And I think, and I can empathize with that, because I think what's happening is we denominate these sums in the same currency that we live our lives in, right? We talk in pounds, we talk in dollars, and we live in pounds, we live in dollars. And it is very natural to compare these things. And I remember my own personal journey. So we started Distilled when Duncan and I, when we were 25. And I distinctly remember the moment, it must have been sometime in our second year, I think, when our monthly outgoings for the business got to the stage that they were more than my credit card limit, more than the money I had on hand. I have a lot of money on hand. I was 25. I was just building my career and trying to make a living. And I really remember that moment when the business was spending more than I ever had. And it was a really interesting moment because, first of all, this was our business, and psychologically that was the point where I could no longer bail the business out, right? So I suddenly had to, we had to grow up our financial reporting and capabilities. We had to track things much more carefully, and it went from the point where a mistake would have been a small problem to a mistake could have been critical for the business. And for me, that was obviously quite early in the business life cycle, quite early in my career, because I was seeing the bank statement every month. But I've then seen a lot of people go on this journey when you start talking about projects that cost tens of thousands, annual costs in the hundreds of thousands. And it's the most natural thing in the world to compare that to money in your own life, right? That's a car, a house, a deposit, more money than you've ever seen in your life. And it takes a while to get your head around the fact that this is the tool of business. These are the units that are being spent. And I often compare it to, so I've never played poker to a high level. I played recreational poker, but folks I know who have played competitively say they go on a similar journey where they have to come to see the chips as more abstract units rather than, this chip is rent. Because if you are seeing the chips for what they are as an amount of money that you care about in your personal life, you won't play correctly. You'll be too timid. You won't be prepared to take advantage of the opportunities when they come along. And this journey, when I was growing our business in the early days, it was surprising how quickly it went from that point of the amount we're spending each month is comparable to the amount I spend in my personal life, to bigger than that, to bigger than I can imagine spending in my personal life, to out with the realms of anything that I could conceivably borrow on a personal level or spend on a personal level. And even a small business, and these Distilled never grew to the size of the businesses that we're talking to as customers of SearchPilot, but even that small business with millions in revenue had things that we spent tens, if not hundreds of thousands on. I think I've told the story before of signing the contract with HubSpot for tens of thousands when the business was making millions. And so I find it, as I say, shocking, but not surprising, that a lot of channel specialists, folks working in the channel on SEO, I'm sure it happens in other areas as well, feeling like 100,000, 200,000 is a huge amount for a business to spend. And you can kind of logically tell yourself, well, that's obviously not the case because we've got a team of 5 people here, and what do you think 5 people cost? Clue is more than tens of thousands. And but actually, when we're talking these businesses that have hundreds of millions, billions of revenue, their budgets for things that really move the needle for them are substantial. They may not be exposed to you in that way, they may not be talked about in that way, but they exist. And so if you look around and there's multiple people in your team, then you are working in a business that has budget for things that work. And so what we're really trying to do here is bring these concepts together, speak to the folks in the organization who speak that language. What I'm trying to do today, I guess, is just spark this idea, spark the inspiration that by learning the language of finance, you will be able to push your career further, faster, better. Excuse me. And that I would encourage you to do so. I think the more you can learn about how the business model of the business that you work for works, the easier you will find to get ahead and to be impactful. Because, as I said, spending money is how businesses do things. So that's a bit whistle stop. And as I say, I'm not able to do a full finances training session, nor am I the right person to do that. But I would encourage you to read some public filings, especially if the business you work for is public. All these finances are out there, and you can find tons of material on the internet that will help you walk through how to think about, how to understand these numbers. I'm going to wrap up there because my voice is giving out, but hopefully I'll see you again next week. Take care.